Lisa had never considered herself a dog person. Growing up, her family had always been too busy for pets, and as an adult living alone, she'd convinced herself that she didn't have time for the responsibility. But life has a funny way of changing your mind about things when you least expect it. It all started on a rainy Thursday evening after another exhausting 12-hour shift at the hospital. Lisa worked as a nurse in the emergency department, and lately the shifts seemed to be getting longer and the days seemed to be bleeding into one another. She was driving home, windshield wipers working overtime against the downpour, when she spotted something on the side of the road that made her hit the brakes. There, huddled near a bus stop, was a dog. Not a puppy, but a full-grown golden retriever soaking wet and shivering. The dog was just sitting there perfectly still, as if waiting for someone who was never coming back. Something about the way he sat there, so patient and hopeful despite the rain, broke something in Lisa's chest. She pulled over without thinking twice. Most people would have kept driving, maybe called animal control and hoped for the best. But Lisa had spent her entire career helping people who needed it most, and in that moment this dog needed help. She grabbed the emergency blanket from her trunk and approached slowly, talking in a soft voice. The dog didn't run. He didn't growl or show any signs of fear. Instead, he looked up at her with these deep, soulful brown eyes that seemed to say, "I've been waiting for you." When she wrapped the blanket around him and opened her car door, he climbed in without hesitation, as if he'd known her his whole life. That's how Cooper came into her life. She named him that because he was so cooperative, so gentle and trusting despite whatever he'd been through. The vet confirmed he was about 3 years old, in decent health despite being a bit underweight. And most importantly, he had no microchip. No one had reported a missing golden retriever matching his description. It seemed that Cooper had either been abandoned or lost, and whoever had him before wasn't looking for him anymore. Lisa told herself it would be temporary. She'd keep him until she found him a proper home, someone with a big backyard and kids who could play with him all day. But days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, and somehow, she couldn't imagine her life without him anymore. Cooper wasn't like the dogs she'd seen in her friends' homes, the ones who jumped on furniture, barked at every shadow, or begged aggressively for food. He was different, almost eerily well-behaved. He never had accidents in the house, never chewed up her shoes or scratched at the doors. He seemed to understand instructions the first time she gave them, as if he'd been trained by a professional. Her co-workers at the hospital thought she'd hit the jackpot. "You found the perfect dog," they'd say during lunch breaks when she'd show them photos on her phone. "He's like a robot or something. Are you sure he's real?" Lisa would laugh, but part of her wondered the same thing. Cooper had this way of watching her, really watching her, like he was studying her moods and patterns. When she came home stressed from work, he'd rest his head on her lap without being asked. When she was having a good day, he'd be more playful, bringing her his favorite tennis ball. It was like he could read her emotions better than most people could. Living alone in her small 2-bedroom house on Maple Street had been lonely before Cooper. The neighborhood was quiet, mostly young families and elderly couples. Lisa's house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, with a modest backyard and neighbors who kept to themselves. She'd chosen it because it was affordable and close to the hospital, not because it felt like home. But with Cooper there, the house felt different, warmer, less empty. Her daily routine became something she actually looked forward to. She'd wake up at 6 in the morning to Cooper's gentle nudge against her hand, never an aggressive bark or whine. They'd go for a walk around the neighborhood, and she'd watch him trot alongside her with this calm confidence that made other dog owners stop and compliment her on his behavior. "What's your secret?" they'd ask. "How'd you train him so well?" Lisa never knew how to answer. "I didn't," she'd admit. "He came to me like this." After their walks, Cooper would eat his breakfast quietly while Lisa got ready for work. He never begged or made a mess. He'd simply finish his food, drink some water, and then settle into his bed by the window where he'd wait patiently for her return. Lisa had installed a pet camera to check on him during her shifts, and every time she looked, he was either sleeping peacefully or sitting by the window, watching the street with those observant eyes. Her friends started joking that Cooper was too perfect, that there had to be something wrong with him that she hadn't discovered yet. "No dog is that well behaved," her best friend Rachel insisted during their weekly coffee meetups. "Wait until he eats your couch or digs up your garden. That's when the real dog comes out." But months passed and Cooper remained the same gentle, intuitive companion. He never acted out, never showed aggression toward other dogs or people. When Lisa's nephew visited, a rambunctious 7-year-old who could test anyone's patience, Cooper was patient and gentle, letting the boy climb on him and pull his ears without so much as an irritated huff. The only thing that seemed slightly off was how alert Cooper became at night. During the day he was relaxed and calm, but as soon as the sun went down, something shifted in him. He'd become more watchful, positioning himself where he could see both the front and back doors. Lisa noticed he'd wake up at the slightest sound, lifting his head to listen before settling back down. She mentioned it to the vet during Cooper's 6-month checkup. Is it normal for dogs to be more alert at night? The vet, an older woman who'd been practicing for 30 years, examined Cooper thoroughly before responding. Some dogs are natural guardians, she explained. They're more vigilant when their owners are most vulnerable. It's actually a sign that he's bonded with you and sees himself as part of your pack. He's protecting you. The words gave Lisa a warm feeling. She'd never had someone or something look out for her like that. Growing up, she'd learned to be independent, to handle everything on her own. Having Cooper felt like having a partner, someone who had her back without asking for anything but food and the occasional belly rub in return. As fall approached and the days grew shorter, Lisa's work schedule became more demanding. The hospital was understaffed and she found herself pulling double shifts more often than not. She'd come home after midnight, exhausted to her core, and Cooper would be there waiting by the door. Not jumping or barking, just sitting there with his tail wagging slowly, happy to see her no matter what time it was. Those late nights, she'd collapse into bed without even changing out of her scrubs sometimes, and Cooper would settle into his spot at the foot of her bed. She'd invested in a nice dog bed for him, a memory foam one that cost more than she wanted to admit. But Cooper seemed to prefer staying close to her. His presence was comforting, the sound of his steady breathing helping her fall asleep faster than any meditation app ever had. Her house had always been quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet now. Not lonely or empty, but peaceful, safe. Lisa started sleeping better than she had in years, no longer jerking awake at every small sound or lying awake wondering about bills or work stress. With Cooper there, she felt protected in a way she couldn't quite explain. One Tuesday evening in late October, Lisa finished a particularly brutal shift. There'd been 3 car accidents, 2 cardiac arrests, and a child who'd fallen from a tree and broken his arm in 2 places. She was running on coffee and pure will by the time she clocked out at 11:45. The drive home felt longer than usual, her eyes heavy, her body aching for sleep. When she pulled into her driveway, Cooper's face appeared in the window, backlit by the lamp she always left on. She smiled despite her exhaustion. At least someone was happy to see her. She gathered her things, locked the car, and headed inside. Cooper greeted her at the door with his usual calm enthusiasm, and she bent down to scratch behind his ears. "Hey, buddy," she murmured. "Long day for both of us, huh?" She went through her nighttime routine on autopilot. Feed Cooper, let him out back for a few minutes, refill his water bowl. She managed to change into pajamas and brush her teeth before the exhaustion really hit her. By the time she collapsed into bed, it was 12:30 in the morning, and she was asleep within minutes. Cooper settled into his usual spot at the foot of her bed, his head resting on his paws. The house fell silent except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing on the distant main road. Everything seemed normal, peaceful, just like every other night. But Cooper wasn't sleeping. His ears were perked up, twitching at sounds Lisa couldn't hear. His eyes were open, watching the bedroom door with an intensity that would have worried Lisa if she'd been awake to see it. Something was different tonight. Something that only Cooper's trained instincts could detect. As Lisa slept deeply, lost in the dreamless sleep of pure exhaustion, Cooper remained alert, watching, waiting. His body was relaxed, but every sense was heightened, monitoring the house and the night beyond. He'd been trained for this, programmed by years of careful instruction to recognize when something wasn't quite right. And tonight, something definitely wasn't right. The clock on Lisa's nightstand glowed softly in the darkness, its numbers rolling from 1:59 to 2 o'clock in the morning. The witching hour, some people called it. The time when the world is at its quietest, when most people are deep in sleep, vulnerable and unaware. Cooper's head lifted slightly, his eyes fixed on something Lisa couldn't see, couldn't hear, couldn't sense in her exhausted slumber, but he could. And in a few minutes he'd have to make a choice that would change everything. Lisa was dreaming about the ocean. She hadn't been to the beach in years, but in her dream, she could hear the waves crashing against the shore, feel the salt air on her skin. It was peaceful, the kind of dream you don't want to wake up from. But something was pulling her back to consciousness, something urgent and impossible to ignore. At first, she thought it was part of the dream. A pressure on her arm, gentle but insistent. Then she felt it again, more firmly this time, and her mind started climbing up through the layers of sleep. The ocean faded away, replaced by the darkness of her bedroom and a sensation that made her heart skip a beat. There was something wrapped around her wrist. Her eyes flew open, and in the dim light filtering through her curtains, she could make out Cooper's shape beside her bed, but he wasn't lying down like usual. He was standing and his mouth was closed around her wrist, holding it with a grip that was firm enough to wake her but careful enough not to hurt. For a moment, Lisa's brain couldn't process what was happening. Cooper had never done anything like this before. He'd never even play-bitten her during their games with his toys. The feeling of his teeth against her skin, even though he wasn't applying real pressure, sent a jolt of adrenaline through her system. "Cooper?" she whispered, her voice rough with sleep and confusion. "What are you doing?" He released her wrist immediately, but he didn't back away. Instead, he grabbed the edge of her blanket with his teeth and pulled. Not aggressively, but with clear purpose, like he was trying to tell her something she wasn't understanding. His tail wasn't wagging. His whole body was tense in a way she'd never seen before. Lisa sat up, her heart now pounding for reasons she couldn't quite name. "What's wrong, boy? Do you need to go outside?" But Cooper wasn't looking at her. His eyes were fixed on her bedroom door, which she'd left slightly open like she always did. His ears were pinned back flat against his head, and in the quiet of the night she could hear a low rumbling coming from his chest. Not quite a growl, but close. A warning. That's when Lisa's nurse instincts kicked in. She'd learned over years in the emergency department to trust that feeling when something wasn't right, even when you couldn't immediately identify what it was. Cooper was trying to tell her something, and every fiber of his being was screaming danger. She reached for her phone on the nightstand, her hands suddenly shaking. The screen lit up, showing 2:47 in the morning. The house should be silent at this hour. Nothing but the usual sounds of an old house settling. The refrigerator humming, maybe the heater kicking on. But as she held her breath and really listened, she heard it. A sound that didn't belong. A soft creaking, like someone trying very hard to be quiet but not quite succeeding. The sound of weight being shifted carefully on old floorboards. Someone was in her house. The realization hit her like ice water. Her mind raced through possibilities. Had she locked the doors? She always locked the doors. She was paranoid about it, checking twice before bed every single night. But tonight she'd been so tired and she couldn't remember. She literally could not remember if she'd checked the locks. Cooper moved closer to her, positioning himself between Lisa and the bedroom door. He wasn't barking, wasn't making noise that would alert whoever was out there to the fact that she was awake. That's what struck her as she sat there frozen, clutching her phone. Cooper was being strategic. He'd woken her quietly, given her time to understand the situation before making any noise. Another creak, closer now. Whoever was in her house was moving down the hallway. Her hallway. The one that led to her bedroom. Lisa's fingers fumbled with her phone, nearly dropping it as she tried to unlock the screen. She pulled up the keypad and dialed 911, her hands shaking so badly she almost hit the wrong numbers. The moment she pressed the call button, she heard the line click open. 911, what's your emergency? The operator's voice was calm, professional, exactly what she needed to hear. Someone's in my house, Lisa whispered, barely able to form the words. I'm in my bedroom. There's someone in my hallway. Okay, I need you to stay calm. Can you tell me your address? Lisa rattled off her address, her voice coming out in a choked whisper. Cooper was still standing guard, his body rigid, his eyes never leaving the door. She could see the muscles in his shoulders tensed and ready. Police are being dispatched to your location right now, the operator said. They're 3 minutes away. Is there a lock on your bedroom door? Lisa looked at the door and felt her stomach drop. No, there's no lock. Is there a bathroom or closet you can lock yourself in? Yes, the bathroom. But my dog, get to the bathroom now, the operator said, her calm voice taking on an edge of urgency. Lock the door and stay on the line with me. But even as the operator said it, Lisa saw a shadow move across the thin strip of light at the bottom of her bedroom door. Whoever was out there was right outside her room now. And then the door began to move, opening slowly, inch by terrifying inch. That's when Cooper exploded into action. The dog, who had been so quiet, so controlled, suddenly erupted with a sound that Lisa had never heard from him before. It was a deep, thunderous bark that seemed to come from somewhere primal, a sound that said he was willing to fight to the death if necessary. He launched himself toward the door, and Lisa heard a man's voice curse in surprise. The door that had been opening slowly suddenly slammed shut, and there was a scrambling sound from the hallway. Cooper was at the door now, barking with an intensity that made her ears ring in the small room. Get to the bathroom now. The operator's voice cut through the chaos, and Lisa's body finally moved. She threw herself off the bed and ran the few steps to her bathroom, nearly tripping over her own feet in the darkness. She slammed the door shut and twisted the lock just as she heard more commotion from her bedroom. Through the door she could hear Cooper's continued barking, the sound of things being knocked over and heavy footsteps running. I'm in the bathroom, Lisa gasped into the phone, her back pressed against the door, her whole body shaking. My dog, he's still out there. The police are almost there, the operator assured her. Less than 2 minutes now. Stay where you are. Lisa could hear everything happening outside the bathroom door, but she couldn't see anything, and somehow that made it worse. Cooper's barking had changed direction. He was moving through the house now, and she could hear the chaos of the chase. Something crashed, maybe a lamp or a picture frame. More footsteps running now, not trying to be quiet anymore. Then she heard another sound that made her heart leap into her throat. The back door slamming open, the one that led to her small backyard. More barking, but it was outside now, getting more distant. Cooper had chased whoever it was out of the house. I think they're outside, Lisa told the operator, her voice shaking. I can hear my dog barking outside. Stay in the bathroom, the operator repeated. Don't come out until the police tell you it's safe. The next 2 minutes felt like 2 hours. Lisa sat on the cold bathroom tile, her phone pressed to her ear, listening to Cooper's barking slowly stop. The silence that followed was almost worse than the noise had been. What if whoever had broken in had hurt Cooper? What if her dog, who had saved her life, was lying somewhere injured because of her? Then she heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Sirens. Getting closer, multiple vehicles from the sound of it. She heard them pull up outside, car doors slamming, voices shouting commands. Ma'am, the police are at your location, the operator said. They're going to clear the house now. Stay where you are until an officer tells you it's safe to come out. Lisa heard the front door open, heard officers calling out as they swept through her house. She counted at least 3 different voices, maybe 4. Time seemed to stretch and contract. She had no idea if 30 seconds or 5 minutes had passed when she finally heard a knock on the bathroom door. Ma'am, this is Officer Patterson with the police department. It's safe to come out now. Lisa's legs were shaking so badly she wasn't sure they'd hold her weight as she stood up and unlocked the door. The bathroom light felt blindingly bright after sitting in the darkness. The officer standing there was a woman, probably in her late 30s, with kind eyes and a professional demeanor that immediately made Lisa feel a bit safer. Are you hurt? The officer asked first. No, I'm okay. But my dog Cooper, Your dog is fine, the officer said with a small smile. He's outside with one of my colleagues. He's quite the hero. Looks like he chased the intruder right out your back door. Lisa's legs nearly gave out with relief. The officer caught her elbow, steadying her. Let's get you out of here and get you checked out, okay? The house is clear now, but we need to process the scene. As Lisa walked out of the bathroom, she could see the destruction. Her bedroom was a mess, things knocked over in the chaos. Through the doorway, she could see into the hallway, where a picture frame lay shattered on the floor. But none of that mattered. All she wanted was to see Cooper. The officer led her through the house toward the back door, and that's when Lisa saw it. Her back door, which she was now certain she had locked before bed, was standing wide open, but it hadn't been kicked in or broken. The lock itself looked intact. How did they get in? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The officer's expression became more serious. That's what we're trying to figure out. The lock shows signs of being picked. Whoever did this wasn't some random opportunist. They knew what they were doing. The words sent a fresh chill down Lisa's spine, but before she could process what that meant, she heard a familiar sound, the click of dog nails on her kitchen floor, and then Cooper was there, pushing past the officer to reach her. Lisa dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his fur. He was panting hard from the chase, and she could feel his heart racing under her hands, but he was okay. He was safe. They were both safe. "I'm sorry," she whispered into his fur, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry I didn't wake up sooner. You tried to tell me, didn't you?" Cooper pushed his head against her chest, and for the first time since she'd woken up, his tail started to wag. Just slightly, but it was there. Another officer appeared in the doorway, a middle-aged man with gray hair and a weathered face that spoke of years on the job. "Ma'am, I'm Detective Harris. I need to ask you some questions about what happened here tonight." Lisa nodded, not trusting her voice yet. She kept one hand on Cooper's head, needing the physical connection to ground herself. The detective pulled out a notebook and began asking questions. What time had she gone to bed? Had she noticed anything unusual in the neighborhood lately? Had she seen anyone watching her house? As she answered, still kneeling on her kitchen floor with Cooper pressed against her side, Lisa's mind was racing. Someone had broken into her house. Someone had picked her lock and walked down her hallway toward her bedroom while she slept. If Cooper hadn't woken her up, if he hadn't acted when he did, she didn't want to think about what might have happened. The detective's voice brought her back to the present. "Your dog, where did you get him?" "I found him," Lisa said. "About 6 months ago. He was abandoned, I think. No one ever claimed him." The detective looked at Cooper with something like respect in his eyes. "That's one well-trained dog you have there. The way he handled this situation, the way he woke you quietly before alerting the intruder to his presence, that's not normal dog behavior. That's professional training." Lisa looked down at Cooper, really looked at him, and realized the detective was right. Everything Cooper had done tonight, from the gentle grip on her wrist to the strategic barking to the way he'd chased the intruder out without hesitation, it all spoke of training. Serious professional training. Who had Cooper belonged to before she found him? And what else didn't she know about the dog who had just saved her life? The police stayed at Lisa's house until almost 5 in the morning. They dusted for fingerprints, took photos of everything, and searched her yard with flashlights for any evidence the intruder might have left behind. Lisa sat on her couch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Cooper pressed firmly against her legs, refusing to leave her side even for a moment. Detective Harris came back inside after walking the perimeter of her property one more time. His expression was serious as he sat down in the chair across from her. "We found footprints in your garden right below your bedroom window. Looks like someone's been watching you. Probably for a few days at least. The prints are deep and repeated in the same spot." Lisa felt sick. The thought of someone standing outside her window watching her sleep, maybe planning this whole thing while she went about her normal life, completely unaware. "Why me?" she asked, her voice small. "I don't have anything valuable. I'm just a nurse. I don't have expensive jewelry or electronics or anything worth stealing." The detective leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "That's actually what concerns me most. Your TV is right there in the living room. Your laptop was sitting on the kitchen table, but the intruder went straight down your hallway toward your bedroom. That suggests this wasn't a typical burglary." The implications of what he was saying slowly sank in, and Lisa felt Cooper shift beside her, as if sensing her rising fear. "You're saying they were coming for me specifically?" "I'm saying we need to take this very seriously," Detective Harris replied carefully. "I want you to think hard. Has anyone been acting strange around you lately? An ex-boyfriend? A patient from the hospital who might have developed an unhealthy interest? Anyone who's made you uncomfortable?" Lisa ran through everyone she could think of. Her ex-boyfriend had moved to another state 2 years ago. She barely interacted with patients long enough for them to remember her name. Her coworkers were friends, her neighbors were mostly families and elderly people. "I can't think of anyone," she said finally. "I work and come home. That's pretty much my whole life." Officer Patterson, who had been standing near the door, spoke up. "What about your routine? Do you keep a regular schedule?" "Yes," Lisa admitted. "I work 3 12-hour shifts a week, usually Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Sometimes I pick up extra shifts, but those are my regular days." "And you get home around the same time?" "Usually around 11 or midnight, depending on how busy we are." The detective and the officer exchanged a look that made Lisa's stomach turn. "Someone's been studying your patterns," Detective Harris said. "They knew when you'd be home, knew you'd be exhausted from a long shift, Knew you'd be sleeping deeply. This was planned. Lisa's hand found Cooper's head, her fingers gripping his fur like a lifeline. So what do? I can't just not go to work. I can't afford to move. I can't. Right now, I need you to not stay here alone, the detective interrupted. Is there a friend or family member you can stay with for a few days while we investigate? Lisa thought about her sister who lived an hour away with 3 kids in a tiny apartment. Her best friend Rachel, who was leaving for a business trip tomorrow. Her parents, who had retired to Florida last year. I don't really have anyone nearby, she said quietly. What about getting someone to stay here with you? Before Lisa could answer, Cooper suddenly stood up, his attention fixed on the back door again. Every muscle in his body went tense and that low rumble started in his chest again. The detective's hand immediately went to his weapon and Officer Patterson moved toward the door. What is it, boy? Lisa whispered, her heart starting to race again. Officer Patterson carefully looked out the back door, her flashlight cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. After a moment, she relaxed slightly. It's a cat. There's a cat going through your trash cans. Cooper relaxed too, but only slightly. He walked over to the door and sat down in front of it, as if establishing himself as a permanent guard. The message was clear. Nothing was getting through that door without going through him first. Detective Harris watched Cooper with that same look of respect he'd had earlier. That's not normal pet behavior, he said again. That dog has definitely had professional training. Military or police, maybe even private security. The way he assesses threats, the way he positions himself. Someone put a lot of work into training him. But why would someone abandon a dog like that? Officer Patterson asked. A trained protection dog is worth thousands of dollars. Maybe they didn't abandon him, the detective said slowly. Maybe something happened to his previous owner. The words hung in the air and Lisa looked at Cooper with new eyes. He'd appeared in her life soaking wet on the side of the road. No collar, no tags, no microchip. She'd assumed he'd been dumped by someone who couldn't handle a big dog. But what if it was something else? What if his owner had died or gotten sick or ended up in a situation where they couldn't keep him? I need to find out where he came from, Lisa said suddenly. The shelter might have more information. Maybe there are records or someone who remembers something. Detective Harris nodded. That's actually a good idea. If we can track down his previous owner or trainer, we might learn more about his training. That could be useful if... He trailed off. If the intruder comes back, Lisa finished for him. We're going to increase patrols in your neighborhood, the detective assured her. And I strongly recommend you install a security system. Cameras, motion sensors, the works. I can give you some recommendations for companies. The police finally left around 5:30, just as the sun was starting to rise. Officer Patterson was the last to leave, and she paused at the door. That dog of yours is special, she said. I've worked with K-9 units before. Cooper's got the same instincts, the same training. He saved your life tonight, no question about it. Most dogs would have just barked and woken the whole neighborhood. Cooper gave you time to call for help and kept himself between you and danger. That's trained behavior. After everyone left, Lisa locked the door behind them and turned to look at her house. In the morning light, the destruction seemed worse somehow. The shattered picture frame in the hallway, the lamp that had been knocked over in her bedroom, the muddy footprints on her floor from the intruder's shoes. She should clean it up, should start putting things back together, but she was so tired she could barely stand. Instead, she walked back to her bedroom, Cooper following so closely he was practically stepping on her heels. She looked at her bed and couldn't imagine lying down in it, not after what had happened. So she grabbed her pillow and the blanket from the couch and made a makeshift bed in the living room, where she could see both the front and back doors. Cooper settled down right next to her, his body pressed against hers. She wrapped her arm around him and felt him relax slightly, though his ears were still perked up, still listening. You saved my life, she whispered to him. I don't know who you were before I found you, but you saved my life. She must have fallen asleep from sheer exhaustion because the next thing she knew, her phone was ringing. She fumbled for it, disoriented, and saw it was almost 11 in the morning. The caller ID showed Rachel's name. Hello? Lisa's voice came out rough. Oh my God, Lisa, are you okay? I just saw 3 police cars on your street on my way to work and I tried calling, but you didn't answer and I... Rachel. Slow down. Lisa interrupted. I'm okay. Something happened last night, but I'm okay. She told Rachel the whole story, and by the end of it, her friend was silent on the other end of the line. Finally, Rachel spoke, her voice shaky. I'm canceling my trip. I'm coming to stay with you. You can't cancel your trip, it's for work. I don't care. Someone broke into your house, Lisa. You can't stay there alone. I'm not alone. I have Cooper. Cooper is a dog, not a security system. Lisa looked at Cooper, who was watching her with those intelligent brown eyes. He's more than just a dog, she said quietly. The police think he has professional training. He knew what to do last night, Rachel. He woke me up before the intruder even got to my room. If it wasn't for him... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. After promising Rachel she'd call if she needed anything, Lisa finally forced herself to get up and face the day. She called the hospital and told them she needed a few days off. Her supervisor, who'd heard about the break-in through the neighborhood gossip chain, agreed immediately. Then Lisa pulled up the number for the animal shelter where she'd taken Cooper 6 months ago to get him checked out and officially adopt him. A woman named Patricia answered, and Lisa explained why she was calling. I adopted a golden retriever from you about 6 months ago, and I'm trying to find out more about his history. The police think he has professional training, and I need to know where he came from. What's the dog's name? Patricia asked. I named him Cooper, but I don't know what his name was before. There was a pause, then the sound of typing. Can you describe him? Lisa described Cooper in detail, and she heard more typing. Then Patricia made a small sound. Oh, I remember him now. He came in as a stray, found by animal control. But you're right about the training. When he first came in, our staff noticed he responded to hand signals and had clearly been professionally trained. We tried to track down an owner, but there was no microchip and no one came looking for him. Do you know where animal control found him? More typing. Looks like he was picked up on Riverside Drive near the old Veterans Center. That was about a week before you adopted him. Lisa's heart started beating faster. The Veterans Center. That could mean his previous owner was military. Is there any other information? Anything at all? Let me check his file, Patricia said. After a moment, she continued. One of our volunteers made a note here. She said the dog seemed to be grieving, like he was waiting for someone who wasn't coming back. She thought maybe his owner had passed away and the family couldn't keep him. Lisa felt a lump form in her throat. She looked at Cooper, who was sitting by the window now, watching the street like he'd done every day since she'd brought him home. Had he been watching for his previous owner? Hoping they'd come back for him? Is there anything else? Lisa asked. That's all we have, I'm sorry. But if you want to dig deeper, you might try calling the Veterans Center directly. If his owner was a veteran, they might have records. After hanging up, Lisa sat staring at her phone. She should call the Veterans Center. She should find out who Cooper's previous owner was. Learn more about the dog who'd saved her life. But part of her was scared of what she might find out. What if Cooper's previous owner wanted him back? What if there was a family out there looking for him? Could she give him up now after what they'd been through together? Cooper came over and rested his head on her knee, and she ran her hand over his soft fur. Who were you before me? She asked him softly. And why do I feel like I'm about to find out something that's going to change everything? Her phone buzzed with a text from Detective Harris. Found something. Can I come by this afternoon? Lisa's stomach twisted with a mixture of anxiety and curiosity. She texted back a yes and looked at the clock. It was just past noon. She had a few hours to clean up the house, make herself presentable, and prepare for whatever the detective had found. But as she started picking up the broken picture frame from her hallway floor, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't predict. Cooper had saved her last night, but now she was beginning to realize that she didn't really know him at all. She didn't know where he came from, who had trained him, or why such a valuable dog had ended up abandoned on the side of a road. And most troubling of all, she didn't know if the person who had broken into her house last night was coming back. Cooper seemed to sense her unease because he stayed close, following her from room to room as she cleaned. Every so often he'd pause and tilt his head, listening to sounds she couldn't hear. It should have made her feel safer, knowing he was watching over her. Instead, it made her wonder what he was hearing that she wasn't. Detective Harris arrived at exactly 3 o'clock that afternoon, and he wasn't alone. With him was an older man, probably in his early 70s, with silver hair and the kind of posture that screamed military background. He walked with a slight limp and carried a worn leather folder under his arm. Lisa opened the door, and Cooper immediately moved to her side. But something strange happened. The older man looked at Cooper, and Cooper's entire demeanor changed. His tail started wagging, Not the cautious wag he usually gave strangers, but an excited, happy wag. He let out a small whine and looked up at Lisa as if asking for permission. "This is Robert Chen," Detective Harris said, gesturing to the older man. "He contacted us this morning after hearing about the break-in on the local news. He thinks Cooper might have belonged to someone he knew." Robert was staring at Cooper with emotion clearly written across his face. "May I?" he asked Lisa, gesturing toward the dog. Lisa nodded and Robert stepped inside. He knelt down slowly, his knee making a slight cracking sound, and held out his hand. Cooper walked right up to him and pushed his head into Robert's palm. The older man's eyes got watery as he scratched behind Cooper's ears. "It's you," Robert said softly. "I wasn't sure from the news footage, but it's definitely you." He looked up at Lisa. "This dog's name isn't Cooper. It's Max, and he belonged to my best friend Thomas Wright." Lisa felt her heart skip. "Belonged? Past tense?" Robert nodded, slowly getting back to his feet with a slight grimace. "Tom passed away 4 months ago. Heart attack. It was sudden, and he didn't have any family left. I was his emergency contact, but I was out of the country when it happened, visiting my daughter in Japan. By the time I got back, Tom's apartment had been cleared out by the landlord. I looked everywhere for Max. I thought maybe he'd run off or that animal control had picked him up, but I could never find him." Detective Harris motioned toward the living room. "Why don't we all sit down? Mr. Chen has some information that I think you need to hear." They settled in the living room, Cooper sitting right at Robert's feet, something Lisa had never seen him do with anyone else. There was clearly a connection there, a recognition that went beyond normal dog behavior. Robert opened his leather folder and pulled out a photograph. He handed it to Lisa, and she found herself looking at a picture of a man in his late 60s, fit and serious looking, with kind eyes. He was in military uniform, medals on his chest, and at his side sat Cooper. Or Max. The dog looked younger in the photo, but unmistakable. Tom was a veteran, Robert explained. Marines, served 2 tours overseas. When he came back, he worked as a private security consultant for about 20 years. Max wasn't just his pet. He was a trained protection dog, one of the best. Tom spent 3 years training him, using techniques he'd learned in the military and from professional dog trainers. Lisa looked down at Cooper, or Max, seeing him in a completely new light. "What kind of training are we talking about?" "Full protection training," Robert said. Max was trained to assess threats, to alert his handler to danger without creating panic, to protect when necessary. Tom trained him to wake someone using a gentle mouth grip, exactly what you described to the police. That was one of Tom's signature techniques. He said it was the most effective way to wake someone in an emergency, without startling them into making noise. "Why would he need a dog trained like that?" Lisa asked. Robert's expression darkened. "Because Tom made enemies during his security work. He testified against some dangerous people, put some bad folks behind bars. He always said he slept better knowing Max was watching over him." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "There's something else you should know. About 3 weeks before Tom died, he called me, said he thought someone was following him. He'd noticed the same car on his street multiple times, someone watching his apartment building." Lisa felt cold. "Did he report it to the police?" "He did, but they couldn't find anything concrete. No evidence of stalking, no threats. Tom thought maybe he was just being paranoid, that his old security instincts were making him see danger where there wasn't any." Robert's jaw tightened. "But now I'm not so sure. The heart attack, it was supposedly natural causes, but Tom was healthy. He exercised every day, ate right, had just gotten a clean bill of health from his doctor 2 months before." Detective Harris leaned forward. "We're looking into it. If someone wanted Tom dead and he had a trained protection dog, they'd have to wait until the dog wasn't around. Or they'd have to get rid of the dog first." The implications settled over Lisa like a dark cloud. "You think someone took Max away from him?" "Tom's apartment was on the 3rd floor, Robert said. No balcony, windows that don't open wide enough for a dog to fit through. The only way Max could have gotten out was through the door. Either Tom let him out, which he never would have done, or someone else did. And Max was found on Riverside Drive, which is about 2 miles from where Tom lived," Detective Harris added. "Someone could have driven him there and let him out, thinking he'd just become another stray." Lisa's hand found Cooper's head, her fingers tangling in his fur. "But why come after me? I don't have anything to do with Tom or his security work. That's what we're trying to figure out, the detective said. But I have a theory. If someone wanted to make sure Tom died alone, without his protection dog there to alert him or get help, they'd need to remove Max first. But Max is trained. He's valuable, and more importantly, he's a witness. A witness? Lisa repeated, confused. Dogs remember, Robert said quietly. Max would recognize the person who took him away from Tom. If that same person saw Max again, recognized him, they might want to eliminate that risk. The room fell silent as everyone processed this. Lisa felt sick. You're saying someone broke into my house to hurt Cooper? To hurt Max? It's possible, Detective Harris said. Or they were trying to get to you to get to Max. Either way, you're both in danger as long as whoever did this thinks Max might be able to identify them. But he's a dog, Lisa protested. It's not like he can testify in court. No, but if we had a suspect, Max could identify them, Robert said. A trained protection dog never forgets a threat. If we brought someone in for questioning and Max reacted to them, that would give us probable cause to dig deeper. He looked at the dog with obvious affection. Tom always said Max was smarter than most people he knew. Lisa's mind was reeling. She looked at Cooper, or Max, seeing the whole past 6 months in a new light. The way he was always alert at night. The way he positioned himself to watch the doors. The way he'd woken her so carefully, given her time to call for help. None of it was instinct or luck. It was training. He'd been protecting her the same way he'd protected Tom. What do we do now? She asked, her voice small. Detective Harris pulled out a business card and handed it to her. First, you're going to call this number and get a security system installed. Cameras, alarms, the works. I've already arranged it with the company. They're going to come out tomorrow and set everything up. No charge. It's part of a victim assistance program. Second, Robert added, you need to be careful. Change your routine? Don't come home at the same time every night. Park in different spots. Be aware of your surroundings. And most importantly, trust Max. If he alerts to something, don't ignore it. Tom trusted him with his life, and you should too. I'm also assigning an officer to do regular drive-bys of your house, the detective said. And I want you to keep your phone on you at all times. If anything feels off, even slightly, you call 911 immediately. Lisa nodded, trying to absorb everything. What about Tom's death? Are you going to investigate that? I've already reopened the case, Detective Harris said. We're going to take another look at everything. The coroner's report, the scene, witnesses. If something was missed the first time, we'll find it. Robert reached into his folder again and pulled out another photo. This one showed Tom and Max together in what looked like a living room. Tom was smiling, and Max was sitting beside him with what could only be described as a dog smile. Tom loved this dog more than anything, Robert said, his voice thick with emotion. When his wife died 5 years ago, Max was what kept him going. He used to say Max wasn't just a dog, he was family. He handed the photo to Lisa. I'm glad he found you. Tom would have wanted Max to be with someone who'd care for him, keep him safe. I'm too old to handle a dog like Max anymore, and I think he's already chosen his new person anyway. Lisa looked down at the photo, then at Cooper, or Max, sitting loyally at her feet. Can I still call him Cooper? She asked. I know that's not his real name, but it's what he's answered to for 6 months now. Robert smiled, the first real smile since he'd arrived. Tom always said a dog's name doesn't matter as much as the love behind it. Call him whatever feels right to you. He'll respond to either. After the detective and Robert left, Lisa sat on her couch for a long time just looking at Cooper. He looked back at her with those intelligent brown eyes, and she wondered what he was thinking. Did he remember Tom? Did he understand that his previous owner was gone? Had he been grieving when she found him? Or had he simply been doing what he was trained to do, surviving until he found a new person to protect? You've been protecting me this whole time, haven't you? She said softly. Even before last night. That's why you're always so alert. That's why you position yourself where you can see the doors. You weren't just being a good dog. You were doing your job. Cooper tilted his head, that characteristic gesture that always made her smile. She reached out and pulled him close, burying her face in his fur. I'm so sorry about Tom, she whispered. I'm sorry you lost him. But I promise I'll take care of you. I promise I'll keep you safe, just like you've kept me safe. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Just finished my presentation early. Boss said I could work remote for a few days. I'm coming over tonight and I'm bringing wine and Chinese food. Don't argue. Lisa smiled despite everything and texted back a thank you. Having Rachel there would help. Having company would make the house feel less empty, less vulnerable. As evening approached, Lisa found herself watching Cooper more carefully, noticing things she'd missed before. The way he did a full perimeter check of the house every few hours. The way he tested the doors with his nose, making sure they were secure. The way he positioned himself differently depending on what room she was in, always maintaining a line of sight to the most vulnerable entry points. This wasn't a pet who'd been trained to sit and shake. This was a professional, a guardian who'd been molded by years of careful instruction. And somehow he'd chosen to extend that protection to her. When Rachel arrived at 7 with bags of food and a bottle of wine, Cooper did his usual polite greeting, but Lisa noticed he also did a quick check of Rachel, sniffing her carefully before relaxing. He was screening her, making sure she wasn't a threat. How had Lisa never noticed these things before? Over dinner, Lisa told Rachel everything. About Tom, about the training, about the theory that someone had taken Cooper away from him on purpose. Rachel listened with growing horror, her fork pausing halfway to her mouth. So you're telling me that someone might have killed this Tom guy, and now they're after Cooper because he's a witness? Rachel said. Lisa, that's insane. This is like something out of a movie. I know, Lisa said tiredly, but it makes sense. Why else would someone break into my house and go straight for my bedroom? They weren't interested in my TV or laptop. They were interested in me and by extension Cooper. Rachel looked at the dog who was lying by the back door, alert even while resting. That's actually terrifying. What are you going to do? What can I do? The police are investigating. I'm getting a security system installed tomorrow. Beyond that, I just have to be careful and trust that Cooper will alert me if there's danger. Trust a dog with your life, Rachel said, shaking her head. Never thought I'd see the day when that was sound advice. But as Lisa looked at Cooper, she realized that's exactly what she was doing. She was trusting him with her life, the same way Tom had trusted him. And based on what had happened last night, that trust wasn't misplaced. The question was, would Cooper's training and her caution be enough to keep them both safe?